I'm done apologizing for being white. I didn't own slaves. I didn't write Jim Crow. I didn't redline. I was born in the 1980s to a middle-class family that had to work for everything. I work 50 plus hours a week, pay my taxes, and I'm still told I'm the villain. Every day it's check your white privilege, do a land acknowledgement, post the black square, feel guilty for something I had zero to do with. My great-grandparents came off a boat from Germany with nothing. I've got black people in my family tree, and nobody in my bloodline ever owned a slave. You want an apology? Dig up the dead. You want money? Call Congress, or better yet, work for it like everybody else has to. I'm not your emotional punching bag, and I'm sure as hell not your ATM because my skin is lighter than yours. And let's be real, people who never pick cotton want a check from people who never owned a plantation. That's not justice, that's a shakedown. And these sniveling liberal white apologists crying online for sins they didn't commit, you're not brave, you're embarrassment. You apologize when you not for history you weren't alive for. I'm sick of being told it's a crime to be a straight white man in this country. I go out of my way to treat people with respect until they give me a reason not to. I'm done bending the knee. I'm done whispering. I'm done disappearing into the background so you can feel comfortable. I'm picking my side. I'm not guilty. I'm not sorry. I never was. You can stay mad. If you're done apologizing too,
when the do we even start apologizing? I'm trying to figure it out because why the do I gotta apologize for the color of my skin to benefit you? I'm not apologizing for shit. I was born white. I can't help that. I didn't own no slaves. My parents didn't own no slaves. My parents' parents didn't own no slave. And their parents didn't own no slaves. Like, why the are we still talking about this shit? And why the are we still apologizing for us being white? Like, this makes no fucking sense. I get up every day and put my shoes on just like everybody else does. I don't have shit to apologize, and I'm not going to apologize. You don't like it? Tough titty, said the kitty, because the milk was dry.
Nobody's asking individual white Americans to pay reparations. Nobody's asking innocent individual white Americans to apologize for what they didn't do. All black Americans are asking for is these people to acknowledge that the system is still oppressing black Americans until today. What black Americans are asking for is these Americans to understand that the US government has to pay reparations to the people who have originated from the formerly enslaved people. So this is where many of you white Americans are getting it wrong. Black Americans are not asking you to pay reparations. They are asking the US government to pay reparations. And when it comes to white privilege, many of these people don't even understand what white privilege means. They don't understand the exact meaning of white privilege, and that is why they're getting it wrong. I want us to understand from what these people are saying. Many of them are going to deeply explain what white privilege is. I want you to watch the video from the beginning to the end. And as you're watching, I want you to just supply us with information that are probably missing from what I've put together so that we all learn from each other. I will come back at the end.
I do understand your sentiments, but you are putting yourself in an argument that has nothing to do with you. Now, if you feel like you shouldn't apologize for some shit you didn't do, why the are you telling us? Keep that shit to yourself. You made a video because you wanted to play the victim. Nobody's asking reparations from white people. We're asking reparations from the government. You know, the same government that you had nothing, well, you kind of did, your family kind of did, you know, but the rest of us, we didn't have nothing to do with the Holocaust. So why the are we paying Israel $1 billion a year? It was black people and white people who saved the Jews, but now we got to pay them reparations, but you don't see no one in America crying about that. You paid the Native Americans. In fact, you paid them under Obama. I wasn't here during the Trail of Tears, which actually had Africans. I wasn't here when they signed treaties and lost their land, but yet we gave them $90 million under Obama. You said nothing. We paid the Chinese, we paid the Japanese, you paid everybody, but when it comes to black people, you don't want to pay nobody. See, it's like a debt. When you have a debt, like say you have a hospital bill, you don't pay it. The hospital sells it to a debt collector. You don't pay them, they sell it. So you didn't pay my forefathers, so you didn't pay their, which would probably be my 3-4 time removed grandfather, then my third removed grandfather, then my second removed grandfather, then my grandfather, then me. My father, then me. So I'm here to collect the debt. No one's trying to shake you down. You owe that debt, and we want our money.
I'm going to say this and I don't give a who cries in the comments. It's about to get real. I'm done apologizing for being white.
Nobody's asking you to apologize. Society's just asking you to acknowledge and behave accordingly, and that shouldn't be difficult, and it certainly shouldn't make you this angry. We're asking you to acknowledge that our society has been built on the back of those who were exploited just because of the color of their skin. Acknowledge that America still very much operates on the principle that rights and opportunities vary depending on that color of your skin. Acknowledge that whether you want it or not, whether you're looking for it or not, white privilege exists. And white privilege isn't about you demanding to be treated better, so calm down. White privilege is about Black Americans being treated differently. Because whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, whether you celebrate it or not, the truth is that Black Americans are still receiving prison sentences that are 20% longer than white people for the exact same crime. And Black Americans are still less likely to be approved for a mortgage than white Americans with the exact same financial profile. And right here in the United States, Black students are more likely to be suspended or expelled than white students who commit the exact same violations. This is what we mean when we talk about white privilege. Nobody's asking you to apologize because you personally are white. We're asking you to acknowledge that Black people are still running our society's competition for success, burdened by inequality and injustice. I shouldn't apologize because racism existed until 1868 shows us how blind you are to the daily systemic injustices Black Americans have to endure every day. And that is probably the most glaring example of white privilege you could ever give us.
Since everyone likes to talk about white privilege does not exist in the US. There's nothing a white person can do that a black person can, or vice versa. It's not that difficult.
Let me give an example of what white privilege actually is, since people like you keep trying to simplify it to equal opportunity when it's not that. Say we apply for the same job, right? And we both get that job. We both got the interview, we both got hired. Cool. Now 3 months into the job, one day you're late. You didn't tell the manager you were coming late. You just showed up late. On top of showing up late, you're on your phone at work. You go outside, you leave other people, or you leave me doing all the other work. You're basically getting paid to do essentially nothing. And the manager either doesn't care as much, or they're like, hey, just a warning, try not to be late. So say I come to work late once. I go on my phone once out of the 3 months that we've been working there. And the manager talks to me only saying that, hey, you can't be on your phone and you need to be on task more. To me only, by the way. That's an example of white privilege. It's not about equal opportunities. It goes deeper than that. Because the manager's bias towards you affected how they treat me. Because guess what? You were able to get away with being late and going on your phone and being off task while I had to get lectured or talked to. That's an example of privilege. There's really no excuse for it. And this is a real world example. This is stuff that actually happens in people's workplaces. And for y'all who are going to say that we love to play the victim, or black people like to play the victim, or people of color like to play the victim, there's no victim to play if we're already the victim. Discrimination like this in workplaces already happen. Racial bias like this already happened today. Pointing it out doesn't make you a victim, it's just being aware of it. You benefit from the system because of your skin color. That's privilege. Equal opportunity means nothing if equality disappears the moment you enter the workplace. It's not hard.
Oh, white people never get pulled over for speeding tickets. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that because I'm white, I get to exist in privilege where I'm less likely to get pulled over for a speeding ticket. And maybe if I get pulled over for, I don't know, a DUI when I'm 19 years old, they might let me off scot-free while simultaneously sentencing a black person who did the exact same thing 2 years in prison. And we know for a fact that people of color have longer prison sentences than white people. And it's not because they're committing different crimes. It's because they have a different color of skin.
Something that white people seem to confuse a lot is the term white privilege. They confuse it with privileged white. So people that get all upset saying, I don't have white privilege, I was raised poor. It's not what it means. White privilege doesn't mean that you were born privileged. It means the color of your skin didn't make it harder. I had 0.0 understanding of it until I realized that the same world that helped me feel like I belong made them have to prove it harder and harder every single day. See, privilege shows up in all these little moments that white people don't even notice. One of the biggest lessons I got was driving around in upstate New Hampshire and going faster than the speed limit. And my wife told me to slow down, and I said, relax, I'm only going 10 over the limit, we'll be fine. When it was at that moment that I realized, if I get pulled over, the worst fear going through my head is I'm gonna get a speeding ticket, or my insurance might go up. Oh crap, I can't afford another infraction. Meanwhile, when a black person gets pulled over and sees the blue lights, the fears going through their head are, will they make it home from this? Will they survive this traffic stop? How can they get through this alive? That's white privilege right there. That was the first time I got slapped in the face with reality of what white privilege means. Unpacking your privilege isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. It's about realizing if you don't understand the weight that your partner or your kids have to carry, then you're accidentally going to add to it. White people get to retreat into their whiteness at the end of the day. Can't do that with a biracial family. When you see the world react to the people that you love and you do and say nothing about it, then they end up dealing with it all on their own. My job as a white man, a white partner, a white father, isn't to feel bad about my privilege. It's to use it, to shield, to advocate, to listen, to learn, and to challenge the system and benefit from it. Because my family deserves better, and truth is, so does yours. White people, unpacking your privilege isn't punishment. It's the first step in finally showing up for the people who don't get to ignore the world we helped build. It's the difference between being in a biracial family and truly being part of one. Share your thoughts in the comment section and follow me for more.
Y'all gotta stop confusing wealth privilege with white privilege. The same excuse that I always hear from the white people that want to argue it is, I've had to work hard for everything that I've got, and I wasn't handed any money or a silver spoon, and I was poor, and blah 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 blah. Guess what? I was poor too growing up. Guess what? I am still to this day in my 30s a struggling single mother. Stop using the fact that you've had to work your ass off for everything having anything to do with your skin color. There's a lot of us in this country, white, black, blue, purple, green, yellow, that don't have money. That's called the middle class and the lower class. The privilege that you got is something that you don't even realize and that you take for granted every time you step out the house. You can get pulled over and not have a care or worry in the world that you're going to get pew-pewed or unalived. You could get arrested for a DUI and not have a care in the world or worry that you're going to make it to the jail alive. You can walk around the mall or a grocery store or a convenience store and not be followed around based off of how you look. I will say some people that are heavily tatted get judged, but that's besides the point. You don't have to worry about your hair being a problem on whether or not you're going to get a job position. There's a certain bias and profiling that goes on a daily basis to non-white people. But because you're white, you will never understand what it feels like to be profiled for something you never thought you would get profiled for. Now, I will give some people the benefit of the doubt, right? Your life experiences and things that you are in proximity to are going to change your perception to things. But it's just diabolical to me that racist people or people who want to claim white privilege don't exist. I will stand 10 toes down believing that Jesus and a bunch of stories in the Bible are true and a bunch of people that you ain't never seen in your goddamn life without seeing it, right? But you can't grasp your head around the fact that the things that we're talking about exist even if you haven't seen it. You can't grasp your head around the fact that just because you ain't gone through it means it doesn't exist. And even when it exists, right, it's not something that you should feel defensive about. It's not something you can help, unfortunately. So the least you could do is be empathetic to it, right? The least you could do is recognize it and acknowledge it, right? The least you could do is not minimize other people's experiences and feelings about it, right? Like if stubborn was a race, I swear to God, it would be white people. It's not like you have to kiss people's feet and bow down. All people are saying is, hey, we just want you to understand, acknowledge, and empathize. And a lot of y'all don't have loved ones or people that you truly care about that you've watched go through. Because if you did, you would not have the same perception as some of us. And that's just a factual piece of information, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not. Out of sight, out of mind does not pertain to this concept. Like I said in part 1, some of y'all want to stay delusional. I'm not going to be delusional with you. I get that there's always going to be the exception to the rule, but you cannot sit here and act like millions and millions and millions of people are just pulling this shit out their ass. The quicker people start listening to comprehend and understand instead of listening to respond is when we'll finally make some progress. Y'all be safe out there.
This could cost me followers, and if it does, I'm okay, because I know I've lost the right ones. In 2024, if you don't understand that white privilege doesn't equal financial privilege, there's a good chance it's because you choose to be willfully ignorant. White privilege doesn't mean that you grew up rich or that you didn't have a hard life. It's the concept that by the mere coincidence of you being born white or white presenting, that you have an inherent privilege. You're afforded certain benefits of the doubt that not everyone gets. It's the difference from a white person walking into a store and a customer salesperson walking up and saying, "Hi, can we help you find something today?" To a black person walking in that same store with that same customer service person following them around because they looked kind of suspicious. It's the black family that can't leave their family photos hanging on the wall when they're selling their house because the home appraiser might undervalue their house by as much as $500,000. And for fuck's sakes, you've never had to apologize for being white. Had your parents fucked on a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday, you wouldn't even be you. Rather, just acknowledge that the system that was designed by and for people that look like you has never been a level playing field. I hope this made it clear. Have a great weekend.
White privilege is not saying your life hasn't been hard. All white privilege is saying is your skin color is not the contributing factor to the difficulty of your life. See, as a white person, your life has been hard because all of our lives have been hard, but the difficulty of your life has not been made difficult because of the color of your skin. Whereas as our black brothers and sisters, oftentimes the difficulty of their life has been made more difficult because of the color of their skin.
Yesterday, my son was playing football at school with some white kids and some black kids, and one of the black kids missed a catch. And one of the white kids said out loud, "Well, I bet if it was a certain type of food," I'm not going to say it, you know what I mean, "he would have caught it." And my son got in the car with my wife to go home and asked her what that meant. And it breaks my heart that we continue and will always have to continue to talk about these things with our kids. And it's so important that we do, but it's so sad. Racism, microaggressions, homophobia, humanity, how we treat people. And this stuff is right in front of their face on the football field, in elementary school, good neighborhood. It doesn't matter. It's everywhere. And it made me think about white privilege. And it made me think about the fact that I think I've had it wrong. This whole time I've thought white privilege was about money, and it was about getting into college and getting jobs. And it is those things. But what I don't think I really understood was that white privilege was going through my entire life, never having to know what that kid felt like.
The biggest privilege white people have is not institutional access. Arguably, the biggest privilege that white people have is not having to be hyper aware of their identity at all times. But keep in mind, I said hyper aware. That doesn't mean that a white man doesn't know he's a white man and a white woman doesn't know she's a white woman. What it means is that they don't choose to or have to compartmentalize their identities constantly for survival or social proof. In the African community, in the black community, we are too aware of our identities as a result of our circumstances under colonialism, imperialism, and racism in this world. We spend most of our lives playing these word games about who's really black, who's light-skinned, who's dark-skinned, who's brown-skinned, who's really African, who's African-American, who's ADOS, who's South African, who's really African, who's East African. We waste our time and our talent playing these identity politics, when the real politics we need to be playing is the politics of material acquisition in international relations. In no way should we deny our experiences under colorism, under texturism, under tribalism. But if we spend our lifetimes, our efforts, our talents, and our energy focused towards these things, then what room do we have? What space do we have to acquire material conditions for our community? The light skins got stories, the brown skins got stories, the dark skins got stories, the African Americans got stories, the Caribbean Africans got stories, the immigrants got stories, the continental Africans got stories, the European Africans got stories. And again, I will never deny any of our experiences. But we tell these stories and we obsess over these stories and we build our identity upon these stories, but we never tell the story of our material conditions. If we're not addressing our stories under imperialism, I think the other stuff can wait. If we're not addressing our stories under the European patriarchy, I think the other stuff can wait. If we're not addressing our stories under colonialism, I think the other stuff can wait. If we're not addressing our stories under the prison industrial complex, under the healthcare system that disproportionately affects our women, I think the other stuff can wait. Which again, going back to the point of my video, is the reason why white people are ahead in this country. Because while they have the privilege to focus on their material conditions, you're worried about, do people like you or not? How beautiful are you to the beauty standard?
I'm so sick and tired of hearing about privilege. Privilege isn't being white. Bonehead. Privilege is living in government housing and calling people oppressors while they pay your bills. Get it? I'm done pretending that any of this bull makes sense. You want to talk about privilege? You want to talk about real privilege? Real privilege is wearing $200 sneakers when you haven't worked a day in your life. Privilege is walking around with $300 Beats headphones while you're living on food stamps, while you're on public assistance, and it's paid for by people who wake up and grind every day. Privilege is having the latest smartphone with unlimited data and having zero idea where the bill goes because somebody else is always picking up the tab. Privilege is being able to protest every little thing that offends you without worrying about calling in sick to work because you don't have a job. Privilege is being able to cheat, lie, fail over and over again in life and still get bailed out while people who play by the rules get punished. That's privilege. This isn't about race. This isn't about class. This is about accountability. We've got a culture that rewards victimhood and demonizes work ethic and responsibility. Meanwhile, the people holding everything together for the rest of society, they get taxed into the ground. Their businesses get choked by regulation, and they get personally vilified for speaking up and saying that this is bullshit. You want to talk about privilege? Then start with the people who've never paid the price, but who also scream the loudest. Because they've never had to build anything. They've never had to defend anything. They've never had to carry any real weight. And the reason they get away with it, it's because we don't live in a society of strong men anymore. No.
One of my all-time favorite white privileges is high trust society. The white community, collectively and globally, have fostered high trust into their societies. This is what we call earned privilege, because if we had a bunch of white people going around stealing stuff from other white people, we would not have a high trust society. Personally, I didn't grow up in high trust white society. I actually didn't even know it existed until my mid-20s. Let me give you some examples. So I've been in restaurants where I forgot my money or they only accepted cash and I didn't have cash on me, where the restaurant owners literally told me, take your time, go to an ATM, go to your house and grab your money. Don't worry about it. Just come back when you can pay. If you go to predominantly white areas, a lot less things are locked up, and that's because there is trust within the community. White people all over Europe have welcomed me wholeheartedly into their homes without even knowing me, and left me there unaccompanied while I house sat while they were on vacation in a foreign country. White people in America have invited me to their homes to refill up my water and propane for my RV for free. Well, anyways, I just wanted to come on here and say thank you to the white community for being awesome.
If there was white privilege, why was I always poor?
Yeah, his ideas about white privilege are all over the place. At one point he said, if I have white privilege, why did my mom, my dad, and my grandfather die? Because we're not vampires. There's not immortality. But a lot of people ask, if I have white privilege, why was I poor? Why did I struggle? Because it doesn't mean you won't do those things. It just means you won't do those things because you are white. Many groups have the same struggles you faced, plus others based solely on the color of their skin, and the fact that you don't experience those is privileged. In fact, you're so privileged you don't even realize those struggles exist. In one of his examples, he almost stumbles on the point. He says, if I'm standing with 5 black men and a police officer comes up, they assume I'm the one who's up to no good, completely missing the fact that they're saying you're guilty by association. If you're here with the likes of them, you must be up to no good. And yet all of those men are 7.5 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of a murder than you are. And the odds are even greater if the victim was white. Oh, and if all of you got popped for drug possession, they're 12 times more likely to be convicted on that drug possession than you are. How about we say all of you are applying for a mortgage to buy a home? You're more likely to be approved than they are. In fact, in 2021, an AI bias caused 80% of black mortgage applicants to be denied. And an AI isn't automatically biased, it has to be taught that. And it's not like someone sat down and typed, be racist. It looked at the system already in place, it saw the bias that already exists, and it applied it itself. Now let's say you and all those guys get approved, get your homes, then a few years later, you all decide to sell in the same market. you will almost certainly get more money for your home than they will for theirs. Like this black family who had their home appraised and it came back being worth $472,000 and they thought that was low. So they had a white friend stand in as them, removed family photos, and the same house was appraised at being worth $750,000. The examples go on and on. You don't have violent stereotypes associated with the color of your skin. You're more likely to be shown in a favorable light in the media, even if you've done something wrong. It isn't hard to find characters in books and movies and television that look and sound like you. But perhaps the greatest example of white privilege is when white people say, I think racism would go away if we just stopped talking about it. Because for many, their only exposure to racism is in media and conversation. They don't actively experience it. And not experiencing it is in itself a privilege. If a terrible thing is happening in the world and the only thing you have to do to remove it from your life is to change the channel, that is privilege.
Let's have an honest conversation about white privilege in America, because I've seen that there is a massive disconnect that is happening in America, and this is the time for us to address it. Every time the topic of white privilege comes up, you will hear the same responses from white Americans who feel accused or attacked. Many of them tend to say, if I have white privilege, why am I poor? If I have white privilege, why can't I find a job? If I have white privilege, why am I a single mother struggling to meet the end meet? And here's the thing, I understand why those responses feel valid to people saying them. Life is genuinely hard for millions of white Americans. Poverty is rare, unemployment is rare. People are struggling in America and nobody can deny that. But that response completely misses what white privilege actually is. White privilege is not a golden ticket. It is not a guarantee of success, wealth, or an easy life. White privilege is about an invisible advantage. The small daily moments where the color of your skin removes a barrier that people of color have to face constantly. And the most insidious part? If you benefit from it, you almost never notice it. That invisibility is precisely what makes it so powerful. Let me paint you a picture. Two people walk into a job interview with identical CVs, identical qualifications, identical experience. One is white, one is black, and she walks in with her natural afro hair. Before she even opens her mouth, a silent judgment has already been made. Her hair is deemed unprofessional. Her blackness has already been processed as a liability. She does not get a call back. Her white counterpart does. Nobody will sit in that office and say we discriminated today. It just happens. And the white applicant goes home never knowing the advantage they carried through that door. That is white privilege. Sit in a corporate meeting room. A black professional offers an idea. A sharp, well-researched, genuinely innovative idea. Maybe someone nods politely. Maybe someone changes the subject. 20 minutes later, a white colleague offers the same idea, framed slightly differently. And suddenly the room lights up. Suddenly there is energy, excitement, follow-up questions. The black professional sits there watching their idea get credited to someone else, wondering if they imagined it, wondering if they are being too sensitive. They weren't imagining it. They are not too sensitive. That is white privilege operating in real time. Think about forgiveness. A black student makes a mistake in school, arrives late, misunderstands an assignment, has a moment of frustration. That mistake gets coded as behavioral pattern. It gets documented. It gets treated as an evidence of something deeper, something threatening. Meanwhile, their white classmates make similar mistakes, and teachers will say kids will be kids. That black student learns early that they are not allowed the same margin of error that their white peers take for granted. The lesson flows them for life. Think about as simple as walking into a room, onto a bus, into an elevator, through a neighborhood. The quiet, almost imperceptive way people shift, the way a woman crunches her purse tighter, the way someone crosses to the other part of the street. These are not dramatic acts of racism. There is no burning cross, no slur being shouted. It is 1,000 tiny moments that accumulate over a lifetime into something exhausting and soul deep. White Americans will never experience that. Not once. And then there is what happens when pity enters the picture. When a white person is struggling, visibly homeless, visibly in pain, there is often a compassion extended. a story assumed, a humanity guaranteed automatically. Something must have gone wrong for them. When a black person is in that same situation, the compassion is not always so automatic. The assumptions are different. The story assigned to them is different. This is not about blame. This is not about making white Americans feel guilty for being born. White privilege does not mean that your life has been easy. It means that your skin color has not been one of your obstacles. That's all. And that the distinction matters. White privilege is real. It operates during hiring, it operates in the daily life, it operates in education, it operates in sports, entertainment, it operates everywhere. And it's time for y'all white Americans to admit that white privilege is real. That was it for today. I want you all to tell me what you think about this video. If you have found it interesting, just click on the like button. Mr. TA, your African brother, signing off. Ciao.